Family threw me out of Thanksgiving for being broke until they saw my $2.4 million penthouse keys. My aunt's fingers were still pinched into my sleeve when the front door opened and the cold hit me like a slap. That wet late November air that smells like leaves rotting and someone's chimney smoke. Behind me, the dining room was all warm light and butter and clinking glasses, and in front of me was my uncle's porch, a mat that said welcome in peeling letters, and my own breath fogging up like I was some stranger they'd just shooed off the property. I heard my cousin giggle, like this was a scene from a sitcom, and my mom's voice did that tight sing-song she uses when she's trying to make something cruel sound calm. "Don't make this a big thing," she called, as if I was the one who had stood up from the table and announced, to everyone, that I was still broke. "Let go," I said, not loud, because I could feel my throat tightening and I didn't want my voice to crack in front of them. My aunt's grip loosened, but she didn't fully release me. She was looking at me like I was a dog. She didn't want to bite anyone at the party, concerned, embarrassed, annoyed all at once. The door hovered half open behind us, spilling out heat and the smell of turkey skin and gravy. I could see my dad's face over her shoulder, his jaw set hard like he'd just decided something about me. My brother leaned back in his chair, smirking like he'd won a point. Someone had turned on football in the living room. The commentator's voice carried over the argument like background music to my humiliation. My hands were shaking so hard, I had to clench them into fists in my pockets. It started way earlier than Thanksgiving. It always does. Thanksgiving wasn't the cause. It was the stage they used when they felt like they had a big enough audience. 2 months ago, I'd started getting those little checking-in texts from my mom that aren't really check-ins. You know the ones. "How are you, honey?" Followed immediately by, "Your cousin just got promoted," or "Your brother's doing so well," or "Have you thought about getting a more stable job?" I've been hearing some version of that since I was 19, when I dropped out of my first degree, because I was burned out and broke and trying to pretend it didn't feel like drowning. In their minds, that one decision became my whole identity. No matter what I did after that, working my way up, switching industries, building something real, there was always this permanent shadow label on me. The one who couldn't get it together. I didn't help by being private. I don't post about my life. I don't do the new car Instagram story. I don't like telling people what I'm doing until it's done. Partly because I'm superstitious, and partly because my family has a way of turning your good news into either a competition or a demand. If you're doing well, suddenly everyone needs a little favor. If you're doing badly, suddenly you're a cautionary tale at dinner. So when I finally did well, like really well, I didn't announce it. I just fixed things quietly, paid off old debt, updated my wardrobe in small ways, started eating actual meals instead of whatever I could scrape together. And yes, I bought the penthouse. Even typing that feels insane because I'm not supposed to be the person who says that sentence. I'm supposed to be the broke sibling, the one who shows up with store-brand wine and apologizes for it, the one who laughs off jokes about still figuring things out, the one who sits at the kids' table because it just makes sense. My family had built a whole comfortable story around me, and they liked it that way. The penthouse wasn't some lottery fantasy. It was the result of a long, boring grind and one lucky break that only looks overnight if you ignore the years before it. I work in commercial real estate now, on the numbers side, not the slick handshake side, and I got pulled into a deal last spring that turned into a monster. A big redevelopment, multiple investors, a deadline that had everyone sweating. I worked ridiculous hours. I slept with my laptop open. I ate so much takeout my stomach hated me. And when it finally closed, there was a bonus structure attached to it that I honestly didn't believe was real until the money hit my account. I didn't become a billionaire. I didn't suddenly have generational wealth. But I had enough to do something I'd never let myself dream about too loudly. Buy a place that felt safe and mine. Not just an apartment. An actual place with space and light, and no landlord deciding my home was temporary. I found a penthouse in a building I'd always walk past like it was a museum. The kind with a doorman, high ceilings, and windows that made the city look like a movie set. The price tag was $2.4 million. I didn't pay cash. I'm not an idiot. I got a mortgage like a normal human being, but I had the down payment and the income to qualify, and I had this stubborn feeling in my chest that said, for once, do the big thing. I closed on it 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. The first time I stood alone in the living room, the city lights below me, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt quiet, like my body didn't know how to relax in a good news without waiting for someone to take it away. I walked barefoot on the hardwood and kept expecting someone to tell me I wasn't allowed to be there. The doorman greeted me by name when I came back for buying groceries, and I smiled like a person who belonged, while my insides were still that kid who got laughed at for wearing the same sneakers all year. And then Thanksgiving rolled around, and I did what I always do. I showed up anyway. I brought a pie from a bakery because my mom's pies are always a weapon. I'm the only one who cares enough to make things from scratch, and I didn't want the argument. I wore a nice sweater, but not flashy. I drove my old car because it still runs, and I haven't replaced it yet, and honestly, I like that it didn't announce anything. Pulling up outside my aunt's house, I sat there for a moment with my hands on the steering wheel, watching through the front window as everyone moved around the kitchen like a happy commercial. I could see my brother's girlfriend laughing. I could see my aunt waving a dish towel like a conductor. I could see my mom hugging someone and doing that "oh my God, you look amazing" thing that she never says to me. I should have turned around. I had a whole penthouse I could have sat in with a bottle of wine and zero judgment. But I told myself it's one day. It's family. Be normal. Show up. Don't be the one who makes everything dramatic. The first hour was fine in that stiff way it's fine when everyone's pretending. People ask me surface questions. How's work? Still in the city? My mom made a comment about my hair. My aunt told me to put the pie in the kitchen. My brother, Josh, immediately started on his usual little jokes. "So," he said, leaning back with that lazy confidence he's always had, "how's the hustle?" I smiled politely. "Work's good." He raised his eyebrows. "Good as in you're finally paying rent on time good? Or good as in you're doing okay for now?" My cousin laughed. My mom didn't laugh, but she smiled, which in my family is basically the same thing. I took a sip of water. "I'm fine," I said. Josh nodded, like I'd admitted something. "I just worry, you know. You're always one little setback away from—" He made a vague explosion gesture with his hands, like my life was a cartoon. My dad cleared his throat and stared into his drink. My aunt said, okay, but she was smiling too. I tried to let it roll off. I'd done this for years. Let it roll off. Don't react. If you react, you're sensitive. If you don't, you're a good sport. Either way, you lose, but at least one version hurts less in public. Dinner started. We sat down. I ended up at the end of the table near the kitchen doorway, which isn't an accident. It's a family tradition. The golden child closer to the center, the loud ones next to the jokes, me near the traffic lane, where people can reach past me and ask me to pass things like I'm furniture. They started talking about money before the turkey was even carved. My aunt complained about property taxes. My uncle talked about interest rates. My mom sighed dramatically about how hard everything is. Josh talked about how he and his girlfriend were thinking about buying, but didn't know if it was the right time. He said it in this way that begged everyone to admire him for being sensible. Then my uncle, my aunt's husband, looked right at me, fork hovering, and said, "So, you still struggling?" I felt that familiar heat crawl up my neck. "No," I said, "I'm doing all right." He snorted. "All right," he repeated like it was cute. "We all do all right, don't we?" He glanced around at the table. "Some of us do better than others." My mom laughed lightly. Josh smirked. I said, "Work's been good." Again, like a broken record. Josh leaned forward, eyes bright with that mean little excitement he gets when he senses he can push. "Come on," he said. "You can be honest. It's family." "You're broke," he said like a punchline, like a label, like a role I was supposed to play. I stared at him. For a second, I genuinely couldn't speak. It wasn't the word broke. It was the certainty, the comfort they had put me in that box. My aunt did that half-hearted, "Josh," but she didn't sound mad. She sounded entertained. My mom sighed and said, "Don't tease," but she said it with a smile that made my stomach turn. I felt my fingers curl under the edge of my napkin. I could feel the texture of the fabric, the little raised threads, because I needed something concrete to keep me from floating out of my body. "I'm not broke," I said quietly. Josh laughed. "Okay," he said, like I was a kid insisting Santa is real. "Sure." My uncle's eyes narrowed slightly. "Then why do you still drive that thing?" he asked, gesturing in the direction of the driveway like my car was a personal insult. I swallowed. "Because it works," I said. Josh raised his glass. "To being resourceful," he toasted, and people laughed too quickly, like they'd been waiting for it. Something in me snapped just a little, not in a dramatic way, in a tired way. I set my fork down. "I don't know why you guys enjoy this," I said. The table went quiet in that sharp, brittle way. My mum's smile froze. Josh blinked. "Enjoy what?" he asked, playing dumb. "This," I said, gesturing around, turning me into a joke. My uncle scoffed. "Oh my God," he said. "Here we go. Can't take a little ribbing." My mum leaned forward, eyes wide, voice soft like she was trying to calm an animal. "Honey," she said, "it's Thanksgiving." Exactly, I thought. An audience. A stage. Josh spread his hands. "We're just worried about you," he said, and I almost laughed because that line is so classic it should come with subtitles. "You're always so defensive." I felt my heart pounding. "I'm defensive because you keep attacking me," I said. My aunt's expression tightened. "Okay," she said, trying to take control. "Let's not do this at dinner." My mum whispered, "Don't ruin this," which was the moment my brain logged as the exact second everything shifted. Not because it was new, because it was honest. It wasn't, "Are you okay?" It was, "Don't make us uncomfortable." Josh leaned back, satisfied. "See," he said to the table, like he'd proven his point. "This is what I mean. She can't handle anything. She?" I corrected automatically, then realized I didn't even care anymore. The point wasn't the pronoun. The point was the dismissal. The script. My uncle set his fork down with a clink. "You know what?" he said, voice suddenly louder, performative, like he wanted to be the hero of his own house. "If you're going to sit here and make everything about you, maybe you should go. Seriously, we're trying to have a nice holiday. You're bringing down the mood." My chest went hollow. I looked at my aunt, expecting, stupidly, some pushback. Some "no, that's harsh." Some defense. But she just pursed her lips and looked away, like she didn't want to get involved. My mom didn't say anything. My dad stared at his plate. Josh's girlfriend looked uncomfortable, but didn't move. So when my aunt grabbed my sleeve and said, "Let's go get some air," it wasn't comfort. It was removal, like taking a problem out of the room. And that's how I ended up on the porch with the door half open behind me, heat spilling out and cold swallowing me whole. On the porch, my aunt hissed, "Why would you do that at the table?" Like I'd thrown the first punch. "Istir de here." I didn't, I said. "They did." She shook her head, exasperated. "You know how Josh is. And you know how you all are," I said, and my voice was shaking now, anger and hurt mixing into something ugly. "You let him." From inside, my mum called, "Just go home," like she was dismissing a delivery driver. My aunt's fingers tightened on my sleeve again, steering me toward the steps. "Please," she whispered, "just go. Don't make it worse." I took one step down, then another, and the porch light made my shadow stretch long and thin on the walkway, like something trying to leave without being noticed. That's when my pocket buzzed. My phone was in my coat pocket, along with my keys. My new keys. The key fob with the building logo. The access card. The little black tag the concierge handed me in a neat envelope that said, "Welcome home." I didn't reach for the phone. I didn't even want to know who was texting. But when I shifted my hand, my fingers brushed the key fob, and something about that small, solid object grounded me. It was real. My life was real, not the version they told each other. I turned back toward the door. My aunt's eyes widened. "Don't," she warned softly. But I wasn't turning back to fight. I was turning back because my pie was still inside, and my coat, my actual coat, was hanging in their hallway, and I refused to be thrown out like I was trash and leave my things behind like I didn't exist. I stepped inside just enough to grab my coat from the hook. The hallway smelled like cinnamon and roast meat. I could hear laughter returning to the table already, like I'd been a commercial break. My mum stood near the kitchen entrance, arms crossed. "Take your drama elsewhere," she said under her breath. I didn't respond. I slid my arms into my coat. When I reached into my pocket for my phone, because I wanted to leave with my head up, not scrambling, my keys slipped out. They hit the hardwood with a loud, unmistakable clatter. Metal on wood. Sharp. Attention-grabbing. Conversation stopped. It's wild how quickly a room goes silent when the unimportant person makes noise. Everyone looked down. The key fob bounced once and landed logo up. Big, bold letters. A building name my uncle had brought up before when he'd driven past downtown and said, "Those places are for rich people." Josh squinted. "What's that?" he asked. My uncle leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Is that?" he started, then stopped. My aunt's hand flew to her mouth like she'd just realized she'd been on the wrong side of something. I bent down slowly because my hand was shaking again, but this time from adrenaline, not shame. I picked up the fob and the access card. The card had a small printed line, PH something, Penthouse, my unit number, my name. Josh's girlfriend whispered, "Is that Harbor?" and stopped herself, eyes wide. My uncle's face shifted. Confusion to disbelief to this tight, calculating look. "Why do you have that?" he demanded. I straightened up. The room felt suddenly too bright, too hot. My heart was pounding, but a weird calm settled over me like a blanket. Because for once, I wasn't scrambling to prove anything. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their belief. I had a home. I had a life. I had keys in my hand. Josh let out a little laugh, high and uncertain. "No way," he said. "You what, your house sitting?" My mom's eyes flicked to the keys and then to my face, and for the first time all night, she looked genuinely unsettled, like the script had slipped out of her hands, and she didn't know what line came next. "No," I said, and my voice was steady now. "I live there." The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It was heavy, like everyone's brain was recalculating. My uncle cleared his throat. "You live there," he repeated slowly. "As in you bought?" "Yes," I said. Josh stared at me like I'd just announced I was an astronaut. "You bought a penthouse?" He blurted too loud. I could feel my cheeks burning, not because I was embarrassed, but because suddenly everyone was looking at me with a kind of attention I'd never had at this table. Not warmth, not love, interest. My uncle's eyes darted. "How?" he asked, and it wasn't curiosity, it was accusation. Like I'd stolen it. My mom finally found her voice. "Why wouldn't you tell us?" she asked, and there it was, making my good news into my wrongdoing. I looked at her. I wanted to list every reason, every joke, every sigh, every time they'd made me smaller to make themselves comfortable. Instead, I just said, "Because you don't treat me like you want to know me." Josh's face went red. "That's not fair," he snapped automatically. My aunt stepped forward, tone suddenly different, too sweet. "Honey," she said, "we didn't mean—" "You did," I interrupted, and my voice shook on the last word because the hurt was still there underneath the steel. "You meant it. You threw me out." My uncle's jaw tightened. "We didn't throw you out," he said, as if the door hadn't just been opened on me like I was smoke. I looked at him. "You told me to leave," I said, because I was bringing down the mood. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Josh's girlfriend looked between us, eyes wide, and I could tell she was seeing this family dynamic in real time and mentally deciding if she wanted to marry into it. My mom took a step toward me, voice lowering, pleading now. "Okay," she said. "Okay, let's just sit. Let's talk. You're upset. We're all upset. It's a holiday." I almost laughed. Now it's a holiday. Now we preserve the mood. I shook my head. "I'm leaving," I said, and I could hear the tremor of something like relief in my own voice. Josh scoffed. "So you're just going to storm out and make it about you?" he snapped. The irony was so thick, I could taste it. I looked at him. "You made it about me when you called me broke in front of everyone," I said. "You made it about me when you dared the table to laugh." My uncle held up his hands in this weird peace gesture. "Listen," he said, and his tone softened in a way that made my skin crawl. "We didn't know. If we knew you were doing well. If you knew I had money," I corrected, because words matter. He blinked. "No," he said, defensive. "If we knew you were stable." I stared at him. "I was stable when I was broke," I said. "You just didn't respect me." That landed. Not like an apology. Like a bruise. My mom's eyes filled, but I didn't trust her tears. She'd cried before to end arguments, to make me the villain, to avoid accountability. "I just want us to be close," she whispered. I looked at her and thought about the last 10 years of me, trying to be close by being smaller, by being quiet, by being useful, by laughing at jokes that hurt. "I wanted that too," I said, and it came out raw. My aunt reached out like she was going to touch my arm, but I stepped back. In that moment, my phone buzzed again. I finally pulled it out. A notification from my building, package delivered. A message from the concierge with a photo of a small box on my doormat. Evidence of my life, continuing whether or not my family approved. I slid the phone back in my pocket and looked around the dining room one last time. The turkey sat half-carved, plates half full, people frozen in place like mannequins caught mid-performance. Josh muttered, "This is insane," under his breath. I nodded once. "Yeah," I said, "it is." Then I walked out. In my car, my hand shook so hard I couldn't turn the key at first. I sat there with my forehead against the steering wheel, breathing in the faint smell of pie and fabric softener from my coat, trying not to cry. Not because I missed them, because it hurt to watch the switch flip, to watch how quickly my value changed when they saw a symbol of wealth. When I finally drove away, the streetlights blurred, and my chest felt like a cracked rib. I didn't go straight home. I drove around for 20 minutes with no destination because I didn't know what to do with the silence. I didn't know what to do with the fact that I'd been thrown out and then suddenly wanted back, like a lost item that turned out to be expensive. Eventually, I pulled into a grocery store parking lot and just sat there. People walked past with bags of whipped cream and cranberry sauce, laughing, living normal lives. I stared at my keys in my palm. The fob was warm from my hand. Real. Heavy. My brother called. I didn't answer. My mom called. I didn't answer. Then my aunt texted, "Please come back. We didn't mean it. We're family." Family. The word felt like a net they threw over you when you try to leave. I drove home. When I pulled up to my building, the doorman nodded at me. "Evening," he said warmly, like I mattered. I walked through the lobby with its polished stone and soft lighting and faint scent of something expensive, and my chest loosened a fraction because no one here knew me as a punchline. No one here had a script for my failure. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall. Flushed cheeks, mascara smudged slightly, mouth tight like I'd been biting back words for hours. I looked tired. Not broke. Tired. When I opened my door, the city spread out in front of me, lights blinking like a quiet reassurance. The package sat on the mat, like the concierge said. I picked it up, set it on the counter, and then I just stood there, keys in my hand, and let the silence settle. My phone buzzed again. A text from Josh. "So you're rich now? Must be nice. Guess you can stop playing victim." I stared at it. My hand started to shake again, but this time it wasn't hurt. It was anger that had nowhere to go. Another text from Mom. "Come back. Everyone feels terrible. Your uncle didn't mean it. We love you." Then another. "Also, if you really bought that place, we need to talk about Christmas gifts. Don't be ridiculous. We're family." There it was. The demand, sliding in under the apology like a knife. I sat down on my couch and laughed once, sharp and ugly, because it was so predictable it almost felt scripted. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I opened the bakery box on my counter, took out the pie I'd meant to share, and cut myself a slice. The first bite tasted like cinnamon and salt and something like grief. I ate standing in my kitchen island, looking out at the city, and tears finally came, quiet, hot, embarrassing tears I've been holding back all night. I wasn't crying because they didn't know about the penthouse. I was crying because for years I believed, deep down, that if I could just become good enough, they'd stop. That if I could prove stability, prove success, prove worth, I'd earn kindness. And when I finally had proof in my hand, the kindness still wasn't real. It was conditional. It was hungry. The next morning, my aunt called again. I answered because I wanted to hear her voice, to see if anything in her tone had changed beyond panic. "Hi," she said, breathy. "Are you okay?" I stared at my coffee mug. "No," I said honestly. She sighed. "Your uncle is embarrassed," she said, as if that mattered more than what he'd done. He didn't realize. Realize what? I asked, keeping my voice calm with effort. That I'm a person? She winced audibly. That's not what I mean. It kind of is, I said. She rushed on. Your mom is upset. She feels like you don't trust her. I let out a slow breath. She didn't trust me to sit at the table without being mocked, I said. My aunt was quiet. Then she said, softer, your uncle shouldn't have said that. And you shouldn't have pulled me out like I was the problem, I said. My voice trembled, but I pushed through. You were going to walk me out and close the door behind me until you saw my keys. Silence. That's not, she started. It is, I said, and my stomach clenched because saying it out loud made it real. And that's the part one can't unsee. My aunt whispered, well, not like that. I stared out at the skyline. You were last night, I said. She tried a new angle. Look, she said, voice turning practical. We're family. People mess up. It's one holiday. Don't blow up the whole family over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Like my humiliation was a miscommunication. I swallowed. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. It was a pattern. The only misunderstanding is that you all thought I'd keep accepting it. My aunt went quiet for a moment. Then she said, almost reluctantly, your dad told me to ask if you could help your parents. I felt something cold slide down my spine. Help them how? I asked, even though I already knew. She hesitated. They're behind, she said. Just a little. They thought maybe you could. No, I said immediately. Just until after Christmas, she pleaded. I laughed bitter. It's always just until, I said. Just until you feel better. Just until you get back on your feet. Just until you calm down. It never ends. My aunt sighed. So that's it, she asked. You're cutting everyone off because you're offended? I stared at my coffee. I'm offended, I said slowly, because you threw me out for being broke. And the second you thought I had money, you wanted me back. That's not family. That's opportunism. My aunt's voice got defensive. We just didn't want conflict. You didn't want discomfort, I corrected. So you sacrificed me to keep the mood pleasant. She made a frustrated noise. Okay, she snapped. Fine. Do whatever you want. The call ended. I sat there for a long time after, phone in my lap, feeling like I just stepped out of a room I'd been trapped in my whole life. It was lonely. It was peaceful. It was both. Later that day, my mom showed up at my building. I didn't know until the concierge called up and said, there's a woman downstairs asking for you. Says she's your mother. My chest tightened. I almost said no. But then I thought if I don't face this, it will haunt me. So I went down. Mom stood in the lobby, looking small under the chandeliers, clutching her handbag like a shield. She had that expression like she'd rehearsed being hurt. When she saw me, her eyes filled instantly. Oh, honey, she said, stepping forward like she wanted a hug. I didn't move. Her arms fell awkwardly. You left, she said, like I'd abandoned a puppy. You told me to, I said. Mom blinked fast. I didn't mean. You always don't mean it, I said, and my voice stayed calm in a way that surprised me. But it happens anyway. Mom looked around the lobby, clearly overwhelmed by the fact that this place was real. Her eyes landed on the concierge desk, on the polished floors, on the elevator. She swallowed. So this is yours, she whispered, and her voice held wonder and something like regret. It is, I said. She tried to smile. I'm proud of you, she said quickly. The words hit me weird. Not like comfort, like theft, like she wanted to claim a win she hadn't supported. Were you proud of me yesterday? I asked quietly. When they were calling me broke? Mom's smile faltered. It got out of hand, she said. And you let it, I said. She frowned, defensive. I didn't know what to do. You could have said, stop, I said. You could have said, that's enough. You could have said, she's my child. Mom's mouth trembled. I didn't want a scene, she whispered. I nodded. Exactly. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed. I just want us to be okay, she said. I stared at her, and for the first time, I saw her clearly, not as this all-powerful judge of my life, but as a woman who'd built a family system that kept her comfortable and didn't know what to do when it stopped working. I want that too, I said. But okay, can't mean I take the hits so everyone else feels fine. Mom sniffed. Your father thinks you're being smug, she said, and the word was so ridiculous I almost smiled. Like existing in my success was arrogance. I'm not smug, I said. I'm exhausted. Mom looked down. Your aunt said you accused us of using you. I held her gaze. If that's not what it is, I said, then why did you ask me about Christmas gifts before you asked if I was okay? Mom's face flushed. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I exhaled slowly. Mom, I said, softer, I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. She whispered, so what now? I thought about the table, the laughter, the door opening, the cold air, the keys clattering on the floor like a bell. Now, I said, we have boundaries. Mom's eyes flicked up. Like what? She asked, wary. Like you don't talk about my finances, I said. You don't ask me for money. You don't let people humiliate me and call it a joke. And if Josh does it again, I leave. Immediately. No debate. Mom looked like she wanted to argue, but something in her face shifted. Maybe she could feel that this wasn't a tantrum. This was a door closing. She nodded small. Okay, she whispered. I didn't hug her. I wasn't ready. But I walked her to the entrance and watched her step back out onto the street like she'd just visited another version of her child, one she hadn't bothered to learn. That Thanksgiving, I ended up eating leftovers from a restaurant down the street because I didn't feel like cooking after all that. I put on a movie and sat on my couch with the city lit up outside my windows. And it wasn't some glamorous revenge moment where I cackled with my penthouse keys in hand. It was quiet. It was lonely. It was real. My phone buzzed that night with a message from Josh. You think you're better than us now. I stared at it for a while, then finally replied with the only truth that mattered. I think I deserve basic respect. He never answered. And honestly, that was the first peaceful thing my family had given me in years.